Welcome back to Silent Sales Machine Radio. We are your co-hosts. I'm Brian.
And I'm Robin Joy.
And this is Coach's Corner.
Hey, everybody. Before we get started, I have to tell you, we always have so much fun doing these podcasts or doing this recording and just, hanging out with each other. But today, I have to tell you, Brian was practicing his voice and doing the la, 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 la. And so that's why we're laughing so hard, because it was hilarious. Anyway, let's settle down and get into it. What you got, Brian?
I was doing it to lighten the mood a little bit, get into the levity.
There's levity now.
Well, sometimes we sit down and we're like, what meaningful conversations can we take away from our coaching sessions and share with the community here via the podcast? And, so rarely do we actually talk about specific strategies, right? I mean, we could talk strategy all day long.
And none are right and wrong, and it's not that kind of thing at all. So it's really hard to do in a general way.
And the strategies are pretty straightforward in most cases, right? As what a wise person once said, especially in this business, the best strategy is to buy low and sell high.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. It's very simple. Now, how do we do that, Brian?
Well, but when we're working with coaching clients, it's usually not about a strategy. The challenges exist outside of the strategy. The challenges exist in a mindset. The challenges exist in personality traits. The challenges exist in time, the governors that we've talked about, right? Time, money, and
background. What you've already experienced.
What do you bring into the table?
Yeah.
Right? So many people come into this, and it's a few months after they start, and they're like, I actually did spend some time as a wholesale distributor, or I actually was a retail store manager, and all my friends are still retail store managers, or whatever. And then you're like, well, this is what you bring to the table. We all have something.
Or I was a CPA, or
I was a CPA. I was a graphic designer. I was a whatever.
Yeah, so many things. Yeah.
Right? There are a lot of different things.
Sure.
So it brought up, though, I mean, when we were talking about this one coaching client, who shall remain anonymous.
She's not the only one who ever does this.
No. It just is the one that comes to mind most of all when we talk about this particular situation, which is this. She was awesome at finding her test ASINs.
Putting test ASINs
single
every
week. She was 5, 10, 15 test ASINs a week.
Every time.
And we saw her at last year's Proven Conference, and and that was about a year after she had started, right? And we were like, hey, so, how's business? And, she's like, oh, it's going okay, and, how's your, how are you doing finding ASINs? Oh, no problem finding ASINs, right?
Getting them sent in every week.
Yep. Tell me about your shipments, doing my testing and all that. Well, how many replens do you have?
Oh, probably, quite a few.
Probably a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Probably.
Yeah.
Well, how come you don't know how many you have?
Well, because I keep forgetting I need to go and send the replens in, she says.
I need to go.
I got to send in the replens too, along with my test. Now, this seems to some of you like, what an odd thing. Like, the replens is what we're looking for. The replens is what, if we get those, we're excited and we want to send those and not new tests. Yes, that is the case for a lot of people, but there are people who kind of love just finding the new ones, right?
I was calling it the thrill of the chase.
Yes.
Right? There are a lot of people who see finding these new test ASINs as it's the thrill of the chase.
It's exciting.
What happens, like if you've ever had a cat, like when they're chasing a mouse, as long as the mouse is moving around, they're all excited about it. But once the mouse is
once they catch him
unalived, they're like, they're like, okay.
Okay, that was fun.
Whatever. Yeah. I guess I wasn't that hungry after all, right?
Ew. So, that does happen. And, we tell people how much we love sourcing. I mean, we both really love it when all we have to do is source, even if we don't have to. We sometimes, that's kind of our place that we like to go. Maybe that's why. Maybe we kind of like the thrill of the chase. That could be part of the deal.
For me, just having spent a couple of hours today on sourcing, I can speak from personal, fresh experience here. The source of the product itself is not that, but when I find a new source in general, which I found one today. I was like, I have never heard of this site before. And I start doing some checking out. I'm like, oh, this site is awesome. Right. So once
of course, you're being very careful that it's a source authorized to sell the brand.
For sure. Yeah. Like, I've seen enough websites in my day, although they get really good at it.
They do.
Making them look like they're 100% legit and everything. But this site's been around for a long time, family-owned business, yada, yada.
Okay.
So anyway, when I find a new source like that, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get back and source this site.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not set up in any of the automated sourcing tools that I'm aware of. So it's going to be a manual source, but that sometimes makes it even better.
Yeah.
Because
I feel like you're the only one there.
Yes, because I'm the only one there. Right.
Yeah.
And so when I'm finding these new suppliers and when I'm finding products that I already know, love, and trust at these suppliers.
Yeah.
And some of those products that I know are not in national chains, but they are available at this place or very few places. Gosh, that does feel like a win.
Again, caution, caution, caution. Be very, very careful about your sources, that you have some way of knowing that they are authorized to sell the brand. But as an experienced seller, you experienced sellers, you know.
Yeah.
You know. Okay.
Yes. So anyway, I can see how finding the new things is attractive.
Right. Well, what happens when you go to those sources, or sometimes like lists that everybody's getting at the same time? Like some of those matching tools that.
I see you're jumping ahead.
I was trying to segue.
There's something in the middle there.
Oh, I missed it. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, excuse me. How about if we segue into what do you do with all these what do you do with all these ASINs that you're finding these days? How do you determine what's a good?
Well, hold on a second. I haven't finished the first thing.
Lead me.
Wanted to bring it full circle here because the interesting thing is when I think about people in the community who have been doing this for quite some time, and those people who are not necessarily doing straight up replens, they're doing what I've heard people call sales plens.
Sure.
Right? It's like it's on sale. And it goes on sale a couple times a year, maybe, or something like that.
There's kind of a rhythm cycle, to it, cycle, yeah.
But still, when you're doing that, it is kind of like going on the hunt.
Yeah.
When you're finding new ASINs all the time. You're not necessarily replenishing. So as I was sort of lining up this whole thrill of the chase concept, it makes sense. A lot of people are really interested in the thrill of the chase, finding those ASINs. Replenishing, not as exciting. That maybe is good justification or reasoning behind why some of the sales plans can be attractive for people.
People find a way.
Yeah.
People find a way, and a way that works for them. And it's not going to be the same way that works for everybody. There are always going to be those things that make yours, and your way, your way. And when you find a way, you find success.
That's right. Those who find a way find success. Well, okay. So not to beat that.
Okay,
topic.
So can we move on to the next?
Sure, the next one, not the fourth one.
I'm trying to be real cool, acting like I don't have notes, but yeah, we got notes.
You got notes.
I'm busted. All right, go.
Well, there was a webinar, or not, the Monday meetings that were usually happening in the afternoon kind of changed format fairly recently anyway. TBD on how permanent that's going to be, but that particular session was quite enlightening. And what I heard, so this was hosted by Jim, and Kang Dang was there, and Kang was giving a demo about how he sources, which, by the way, that demo was really awesome because he takes you inside his mindset about how he's thinking about sourcing. And a lot of times this speaks to why going to the workshop is so valuable, because you get to hear other people's mindsets, other people's thought processes besides your own, that you go, oh, I never even would have thought of that. And one of the things that King demonstrates is a great approach to using Keepa to help you source.
Yes.
And, I talk a lot about the automated tools lately, Nepeto and TA and Arbitrage Hero and whatnot. But, Keepa is always going to be near and dear to my heart, and is always at the core of our sourcing strategies.
Well, it's the only thing really that gives us any historical pricing that we can make some some educated guesses on.
Well, we're still relying on Keepa even when we're finding our leads via other sources. But
right. That piece is still important.
What Jim said at the beginning of this meetup session was like, look, the game has changed, right? It's not a onesie twosie approach anymore,
right?
Where we go into a store and we see something that's super ugly. This is kind of the approach we used to take. Oh, that's so ugly. I bet it's selling like crazy. And you'd look it up, and sure enough,
I would never wear that. But...
selling like crazy, right? Or it was way expensive, or whatever, But today we need to work in bulk. And so the game has changed from finding profitable ASINs to finding
viable ASINs.
Viable ASINs. Robin, why don't you give us a quick definition of a viable ASIN?
So viable ASIN. Okay, when I hold my left hand up and my right hand across the top, people who have worked with me know that this means a good ASIN, an ASIN that's branded properly, it's been through the pre-flight inspection, everything, it is what it says it is, and the picture matches. That's a good ASIN. I would sell on that one, all other things being good. And an authorized source, a source that is authorized to sell the brand, and we know it. A lot of times we use those sources that, we already know they're authorized. Walmart, Target, no third-party sellers on Walmart. Kroger, Home Depot, Costco, Sam's, those kind of things. When those two things come together, an ASIN that matches a source, both have been vetted. That's a viable ASIN.
Viable ASIN.
That's a viable ASIN. That gives me an ASIN that I know if the other conditions are correct, I would test it, and could be at any time in the future or currently, but it has to have those two things first to be a viable ASIN.
In the future, so long as the listing doesn't change.
But yes,
right?
Always double check these things.
We have to keep tabs on our inventory to make sure that brand doesn't change, pictures, yada, yada. Description, we were talking about one that we got caught on here recently, but where it was a 1-pack and then it was a 2-pack and then it was a 1-pack and it kept changing back and forth. And finally we're like, okay, time out. We're just going to put that one in the penalty box for a while.
Right.
So anyway, so when you've got a viable ASIN, it's funny, you do it like perpendicular. I do it like coming together like the roof of a house. I go viable listing. A known good listing and a known good source. We put those two things together and we call that a viable ASIN. Now, viable ASINs, if you can get into the game of collecting viable ASINs, then you can turn, I'm going to say, automation, filters, formulas loose on your list of viable ASINs to find the ones that you should be paying attention to. Right.
And I just want to mention real quick before we move on, the reason we say good source and good ASIN is because you have the greatest looking ASIN, the greatest looking ASIN. If you don't have a source for it, it is not viable.
It doesn't look that good yet.
Yeah.
It looks less good when I don't have a source.
It's just not viable. I can't. If I don't have a source, I can't test it. I can't send it in.
Yeah.
So
that's why we call it viable.
Yeah. So that's why, it has to have the source to be viable.
And so viability means that, yes, this is one I could consider, right?
Right.
But what makes me consider it is that then it passes some muster from a mathematics standpoint, right? In terms of sales velocity, in terms of capital protection, and in terms of potential profit.
That's what we use.
That's what we use, yeah. And other people may have other things, but that's what we use to go through our list of viable ASINs to figure out which ones we should be paying attention to. So the viable ASIN database strategy really is where it's at these days in terms of starting, growing, and scaling a business of profitable ASINs.
Oh, yeah. And the whole thing about, I looked forever and I couldn't find a profitable ASIN. Well, number one, we don't know if it's profitable until we test it. Whatever it looks like right now does not necessarily mean that's the whole picture. So you got to test it to find out. So many people are leaving a lot laying on the table because, it doesn't look like it has enough margin. Well, they didn't check to see if it would sell at the margin they need, right?
Or if it has ever sold at that.
Exactly. So, we go over these things in the workshop, but we have viable ASINs. From our viable ASIN database, we find testable ASINs. We use the 3-step check to decide that. And from those testable ASINs, we use a 4-week test to find out if they are profitable, and we want to and those are replenishable ASINs.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so 3 types of ASINs: viable ASINs, testable ASINs, and replenishable ASINs.
Yep.
In that order.
Right. So building a large database of viable ASINs, then this is where you can leverage some other tools that are out there that do this viability check for you. And I say check loosely because a lot of times they're using like UPC and image matching to create what looks like a viable ASIN, right? And so what we can collect these in bulk now, and then use the power of tools, leverage these tools to do the hard work, the heavy lifting, so to speak, right? So it's no longer about finding profitable ASINs. To me, for us, it hasn't been for
really
a long
never
time.
has been, yeah.
But it's more about finding viable ASINs, and then it's a numbers game. And we've been saying this for a long time. It's just a numbers game. So I did a webinar a couple months back where I was looking at creating this large list of viable ASINs. Let's say that I can put 100,000, I can make a database that has 100,000 viable ASINs. Then I can apply some filters to those viable ASINs to find which ones I should be, testing. And if only 1% of those 100,000 were testable, that's 1,000 ASINs that are testable for me at any given point in time. So my success rate in terms of finding testable ASINs can be super low, like not material. And I can still have a large amount of testable ASINs.
Yes, which creates some replenishable ASINs. Of course, all of your testable ASINs do not become replenishable, or we wouldn't need to test, right? But
that's right.
But in order to find them, you have to test them. So we have a lot of viable ASINs to find a few we can test. We test a lot of testable ASINs to find a few we can replenish, right? It's kind of just a numbers game, just like any other business. You got to do a lot of the inbound to get what comes out the other end and work with it to get it there. So,
yeah. That's it. It's just it's like a paradigm shift.
It's so much easier to feel like you've had a win at the end of the day of sourcing too, right?
If
your goal is to get a lot of viable ASINs as opposed to what we think might be a profitable ASIN, then we're going to get a lot more wins. And it's going to feel a lot better to do it that way. Then the deeper your bucket of viable ASINs, the further you can reach in and pull out the best testable ASINs for what you're ready for this week.
We've said that a number of different ways over the past couple of years about, don't measure don't gauge your success by, how many profitable ASINs you've found, because profitable ASINs are only profitable once it's proven, which means you had to buy it and send it in and then it was profitable. And so
with a test. With a test.
It looks like it's potentially profitable. That's a test, right?
Right. We don't want anybody to decide, oh, this is a profitable ASIN, so I'm going to go buy 20 of them.
Exactly.
No. Test small. Make sure first. Do not raise your risk unnecessarily.
Where I'm going with this is the measuring your progress or measuring your wins in terms, it's not about profitable ASINs, it's about viable ASINs. And it's much easier to measure. Right? You can feel like you've got more wins because you really do. Because it's really about viable ASINs. It's not about profitable ASINs.
Right. The profitable ASINs will come out of that eventually if you test them in a planned fashion. But you don't get there until you build the viable ASIN viable ASIN database. I like to think of it as carving out, Keepa has 1 billion ASINs. We've said it over 1 billion ASINs on the U.S. platform. But how many of those are even viable for me? You're kind of carving out your section of what you would ever want to look at so that you don't have all these that you never want to look at it again. You would not sell on that ASIN to save your life. Or you're not allowed to sell on that ASIN. It's hard-gated and you never will be, and that's the end of that story.
Oh, yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Sorry, were you done with that thought?
I was just saying we're carving out our own database, which is a subset of the largest database.
We hear a lot. Not only can I not find anything profitable, what we hear now is I can't find anything I'm authorized or approved to sell. And so when you're going to build your database of viable ASINs, I suggest that you include everything, even if you're not approved for it, so long as it's not restricted. Like if you can never even apply, then don't include that in your
those are going to be private
ASIN.
label brands and brand registry, the hard-gated.
Hard-gated, I believe some of those will come around once you're...
But when they do, then you can just go find those brands.
Right. So what I like to do is put everything in my database as long as I'm not restricted, because I know I'm going to be approved someday. Right. If I'm not already approved. And by the way, I know I'm really going off script here.
Oh, dear.
But I just want to throw this out there because I suspect I'm not the only one, especially when I hear stories of the coaching clients that we are working with, or I see things posted in the Facebook group about, I'm not approved for anything. In fact, I saw one today. It's like, I spent hours upon hours upon hours doing this, and there was not one ASIN that I was approved to sell. So 2 things about that. Number 1 is you should apply.
Yes.
In the beginning, there's a lot of applying going on.
Yeah.
Right. And
that just means click that button that says apply.
Yes.
Right.
And until you actually make some sales, don't expect to get any approvals or many approvals until for those that you're applying to. You need to get some sales, and then you'll see that with frequency, then as you apply, you're getting approved more often. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Something happened to our account, and we got like soft gated on it feels like every single ASIN except for whatever we had in inventory. And I'm like, because I was doing a bulk import into 3P Mercury, and it said, it flags all the ones that I'm not approved for. It was virtually the whole list because I had a list of 1,000. I'm importing, my goal, by the way, 1,000 viable ASINs a week is my goal. Okay. And if you do this, and if I keep up with this, I'm ahead of schedule right now. I started this 3 months ago. So this is starting month 4, and I'm ahead of schedule. And I challenge everyone here. In fact, I did this to one of our coaching clients today. I was like, you know what? I challenge you to build your viable ASIN database, 1,000 ASINs a week.
That's a great challenge.
Super easy to do with the tools that exist today. Even if you're going to do it manually, it takes a lot more to get to 1,000 if you're going to do it manually, but you can. There are many tools that will help you get there. Okay. And because it's just a numbers game, like if you got 1,000 at the end of 2 years, you're going to have 100,000 leads. And that's the situation that you get yourself into. You get 100,000 leads, and even 1% of them is testable. This doesn't count your replens, right? You've got 1,000 testable ASINs at any time.
Yeah, I have a coaching client that I'm working with right now that used to be in sales. He's not currently in sales, but he used to be in sales. And he knew that he had to pick up the phone and call people like 100 times a day or something. I'm not sure the number. But he knew a certain percentage of those were going to give him an appointment. I used to sell, I went for a short stint of selling phone book ads, right?
What's a phone book?
Yeah. Okay, this was many years ago. That's a 1900s
20th century thing? Yeah.
It's a 20th century concept. Okay, so we used to have phone books, and they used to have ads in them. Anyway, so my goal was to get up in the morning and go to work, and I started making phone calls because I needed to have 3 appointments that afternoon. So all morning long, I'm calling as many people as I possibly can to get an appointment so that I can go see them. Then I got to go see, so those are my viable ASINs. Then I got to go see, 20 people to get one to buy. And those are my testable ASINs. Now I got to go test 20 people. I got an appointment. I'm going to get in their office, and I'm going to give them my spiel, and they're going to buy or they're not going to buy. Okay. One down, next, go on. And I have to do that every day, every week. I end up with some sales, but they all came out of all those phone calls that I made and all those no's that I took, couldn't even get an appointment. And then all those no's that I gave my spiel and they didn't buy from me, then a few of them said yes. Those are like the replenishable ASINs, right? Then I go back to them and I try to upsell them and I try, that kind of thing. So this is not unusual. This concept of a numbers game is not unusual at all.
Yeah, especially when you're selling stuff.
Yep.
Right? And we are selling
and
stuff.
Guess what? We're selling stuff.
We are selling stuff, yeah. Anyway, just to finish my thought on that soft gating situation that happened.
Oh, yeah.
It seemed like everything I'm applying for, because I wasn't gated in it before, I'm getting approved for because our account is well weathered and we are approved to sell most things.
You just had click the button again.
I got to click the button. But do you know how long it takes? This is where I'm commiserating with brand new people.
Yeah.
Do you know how long it takes to go through a list of 1,000 ASINs and a click to apply? It takes time. Like it's no joke. It does take time. But here's what I'm saying. When you're collecting your database of viable ASINs, just import everything except for what you're hard gated in. And you will, as you're then sorting your list and applying your filters, and you're doing your quality check of the viable ASIN, then you can apply, right? No sense in applying if it's nothing you need to worry about right now anyway.
I'm going to give you a little clue into how, if you were my coaching client, and you came and you complained to me about how you have to click the button again, I'm going to first of all tell you a million girls would die to have the problem of just clicking a button. Okay.
Okay.
Secondly, that's one of the obstacles that's coming up to you right now. Not necessarily everyone, but we all have the obstacles that we have to overcome. And if you don't have to find a way to overcome that obstacle and just, get through it, you're done.
I guess you're done.
You don't want to be done, so find a way. And you decided to go ahead and go click those buttons and overcome that obstacle, right?
Right. Or just go ahead and import and I'll apply when the time comes. Yeah. I'm like, oh, this is when I want to test, apply, approved, moving on. Right?
Yeah. But you're not letting it stop you. Many little things. Yeah. People let it stop them and then they're stuck there and they can't move forward. And so I don't want to see anybody stop when an obstacle comes up. Yeah. Let's find a way around it.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. So now, where you were trying to go at the beginning of the episode, this is where
Sorry about that.
I thought we would spend a little bit of time talking about this concept.
Yes.
That I'm not sure we've talked about on the podcast before. We talk about it a lot. I mention it in a lot of my coaching sessions. This concept that came from Leah Maudlin when we were chatting with her, where she said, I love to shop from the back of the list. And I was like, shop back of the list? What is she talking about, right? Well, Leah's business is different than ours, right?
Very much.
She uses leads lists. She does sale shopping, right? She doesn't necessarily take the traditional replens approach. While she's got a lot of replens, the game there is to, if I do subscribe to a leads list and I get a list of leads today or this week or this month even, I'm not going to do anything with those. I'm actually just going to kind of forget about them for, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And then I'll come back to them. So shopping from the back of the list is basically get those leads, put them on the shelf, come back to them weeks, months later, right? And when you are subscribing to a list for a long time, as Leah does, then you've got...
Or has. I don't know what she does anymore.
Yeah. Or anyone, for that matter.
A lot of people do.
If you subscribe to OA Cheddar or you get other leads lists, or even if you're using any of the automated tools, specifically Nepedo, the one option that they have on their front page that has the big green button that says, start here.
Bunch of arrows pointing to it.
It looks like it's flashing, everything, right?
Yeah.
Any lead that I get from there, and it's not that I don't get leads from there, I do. But when I get leads from there, I'm putting those to sleep for like 3 months, because if I saw it, hundreds of other people probably saw it.
Yeah.
And there's no way I'm getting on that lead right now.
This is the place that everybody, so whenever you find yourself in a place finding ASINs that a lot of people are using that method and going to that place, that's a good time to, just let them rest for a while. Let that, Leah calls it a sale hit.
Sale hit. Sale hit.
Yeah. So
or a list hit.
A list hit where all the offers come on and then they start evening out. And it may be a new normal at that time, which is higher. That's great. Just don't want to catch it while it's going straight up.
Well, I know that's one of Kang's favorite filters in the restock section of 3P Mercury is those ASINs where the offer count is declining and people have forgotten about. And you know how easy it is to forget about something? Like when you have to fire sale something because you're like, shoot.
Yep.
I got in it with 100 other people or, 40 other people, whatever it is. That price went down. But I need to get as much of my capital back as I can. I'm not going to wait 4 months to get this thing out.
Right.
And I'm going to sell it at fire sale prices. And guess what? When you get burned like that on a fire sale,
then you don't want to look at it
You're not looking at that ASIN for a long time. Okay. Right. And what happens is people sleep on it. It goes, not only do people put leads to sleep like I do,
they never wake it back up.
They never wake it back up. And so when you've got a system that with like a tickler and it says, hey, by the way,
you said you wanted to look at this in 6 months.
You said you wanted to check this out in 4 months, or by the way, the offer count is half of what it was 3 months ago. Then there are ways for you to identify these things.
I love it.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome, right?
Yeah, there's so many little tips and tricks out there. And this is what's great about being part of a community that shares these things.
Yeah.
Because that concept right there probably means 30 things to 100 different people, 100 things to 100 different people. And we each have our own way of taking advantage of those tips. Those tips make us go, oh, well, if that's true, right? And then we try new things. And that's why there's room for all of us.
That's right.
I love this community.
Yeah. I love this game too.
Yeah. It's pretty good. It's been a good game for us. Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, do you have a quote for us today, Brian?
Of course I have a quote for us today.
Of course. A horse is a horse. Oh,
yes.
no, wrong show. Sorry.
This is more of the New Age quote coming to us today from Alex Hormozy. But it speaks, it rings so true about new people starting in our business. But the quote goes like this: if you're willing to suck at anything for 100 days in a row, you can beat most people at most things.
Yeah.
And
I think that's true.
We always say, like, give us 12 weeks.
12 weeks.
Give us 12 weeks, which is 3 months. It's pretty close to 100 days.
Yeah.
Right?
90 days.
You're going to stink at it for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And
be willing to stink at it.
Yeah. Embrace the stink, right? We usually say suck, but yeah.
I'm sorry. I just was reminded of our daughter-in-law said something. Said that one of the differences between men and women is that when women say smell this, it usually smells good.
It usually smells good, yeah.
Okay, anyway.
So if you're willing to suck at something, and by the way, I'm in the middle, I think we're both in the middle of this 100 days of sucking at AI agents.
Yes.
And but we are going to persevere because that's what we do.
I'm not good at it yet.
Yeah, we're not going to be good at it at 100 days, but we're going to be better than most people.
I'm not getting any feedback yet.
Yeah.
But 12 weeks down the line, if you are consistently sending in shipments for testing, you will start to get some feedback at that point. You will be getting usually feedback by then, and you can see whether you're doing well, whether you need to improve. You probably do need to improve things, but where are those things you need to improve? What are those things that you can do something about? When you get that feedback, that's when it starts feeling a little better.
We talk about the feedback loop a lot between the two of us.
Right.
And that when we try to impart that on coaching clients, that feedback loop is you sending stuff to Amazon and Amazon giving you information back. That information that you're getting back is so important because it will guide, it'll help you with your adjustments going forward so that you can get better and better and better. And the more feedback you get, the better you will get, as long as you implement your changes.
But remember, if you don't put the car in gear, you're not going to get any feedback.
If you don't send anything in, you don't get any feedback.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
And the learning of this, just to go, we're a little bit off topic from the quote, but we were talking about the sort of learning mechanism, the information that you get, and the best way to learn is in 3D.
Yeah.
Right? There's the 2D version of learning, which is you study and you
read about it.
You read about it and you listen and you hear other people's stories. That's kind of the 2D. But the 3D is where you actually get in the game. And when you are in the game, that third dimension of information that's the most valuable part.
Yeah. And that's what I always say about Keepa charts, right? There's all this information you can get from Keepa. We use 3 data points only, yes or no questions to decide if we're going to test or not. But while you're testing, that's when you've got inventory in that ASIN. That's the best time to look at that Keepa chart because then you're going to learn a lot more about what those things mean. And how they're affecting that ASIN.
100%. Like I can't think of enough ways to say yes to that.
Yep. And yes.
Yes.
All right.
Well. All right. Well,
if we are filling our database full of viable ASINs, that's not enough.
No.
What do we have to do then?
We got to test those ASINs.
If we have a database full of viable ASINs, we can test more ASINs. All right, let's go test more ASINs. Thanks, everybody. You have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today. Before I let you go, let's spend a couple minutes with my good friends. We got Jeff Shik and Leah Modlin with us today from jeffshik.com. Of course, he's our policy expert, and he's got a great team for all things Amazon, Walmart, Etsy, e-commerce, legal policy, and they've always got something good to share with us today. So what's on your mind today? What are you seeing, Leah?
So we've seen a lot of concern about the recent regatings in various different brands, some significantly larger than others. So the primary concern is, you have a seller who has been selling a brand for years and years, and then one Monday morning, they just can't sell a brand that has a significant effect on their business. Either the brand is the entirety of their business, or potentially it's a very, very large chunk that will cause significant impact by not being able to continue to sell. So in some cases, the seller has the ability to re-ungate in the brand. And in other cases, unfortunately, sometimes they are permanently regated in the brand pending future actions, or pending, I'm slipping on my words.
Amazon changing their policy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, or it's just like, oh, you can't sell it now, but you can sell it in a year. That also tends to happen as well. Sorry about that slip up, but so it creates hard conversations because that business is not quite as diversified as we might want for an Amazon business. It leaves some sellers in a position where they're in a really dire strait trying to figure out how to pivot to that next opportunity or multiple opportunities to replace said brands. So we're witnessing some of the unfortunate fallout from being all in on certain brands and the causes that can potentially create in a business.
So Jeff, would it be prudent advice based on what Leah just told us for me to tell a seller, don't get married to a top 1% brand and go all in? As general advice.
Yeah, and I'd say it's not even just top 1%. It's don't get married to any brand, because at any point in time, I can speak from personal experience. I used to sell 3 brands. That's all I sold on Amazon. And one brand was 60% of my sales, one brand was 30%, and one was 10%. And guess what? 2 weeks after I bought my first house and I'd signed all the mortgage papers, the brand that represented 60% of my sales sent me an email on a Thursday morning, no warning, just saying, guess what? We're going direct to Amazon. You can no longer sell our products. We've alerted all the distributors to not sell to you anymore. Best of luck selling through what you've got. And that was it. And of course, I was shell shocked by it, but we pivoted. The brand that was 30 and 10% brands, those became, 60 and 40% brands. And then we started diversifying with more products. So it just, had to, it sparked an innovation shift in our business. But the moral of the story, though, is for sellers, don't get married to a brand, because at any point in time, you might not be able to sell it. And your only recourse, if you can't sell it, is either get ungated or sell it somewhere else. And that could be Facebook, it could be Walmart, it could be eBay. Don't get married to a brand and think that you're going to fight Amazon on a regating, because unfortunately, that is pretty clear in the BSA that they have the right to implement security controls. And one of those security controls is their gating program. So
we see it every fourth quarter too. We see it every fourth. Right. I mean, it's as long as I've been selling on Amazon, 14 plus 15 years, we've seen during the fourth quarter, Amazon will gate a whole bunch of stuff and then they'll ungate it again once Christmas shopping season is over. These things run in cycles. So diversifying really is the way to go if you're going to be a reseller.
Right,
you
exactly.
told me a story. You were talking with one seller recently, one of your clients. You said, but this is my brand. I've been selling it for years. Like, no, you don't actually own the brand. You're a reseller.
Right. He was so adamant that it was his brand. I actually asked him, I said, is this a private label brand we're talking about? And he goes, well, no, it's something I buy at the store. And I'm like, well, then stop calling it your brand. Yes, right. You've sold it for 5 years.
There's no eminent domain here. I've been here for years. This is mine, right? No, diversify is the way to go. Yeah, I appreciate your advice, guys. Tremendous. Love the way you guys serve our community. Such great partners and sponsors of the community. jeffshik.com is the website. Put these guys on retainer for a few dollars per month, and they'll handle all this stuff for you, give you great advice, even the brand gating and these kinds of issues. You guys are familiar with all the nuances, the legal, the policy, and I appreciate you so much. Thanks, guys. We'll do this again next week. What do you say?
Sounds good.
All right. Talk to you then. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this great episode of Silent Sales Machine Radio. we have a very quick announcement that you don't want to miss right now.
Does anyone out there ever feel uncertain when choosing an ASIN to test? Like, it's ambiguous and you're not really sure.
Yeah, or like you have to stand on one leg on the second Tuesday of the first week of the month if the moon is in retrograde.
Right. And hold your mouth right. You got to remember to hold your mouth right. Then you might possibly
consider testing that ASIN someday, maybe.
Right. Sometimes Keepa seems overwhelming. Like it's got so many data points. What if I'm missing something? I'm afraid I'm missing something, so I don't want to pull the trigger. Right?
Yes. Well, we host a 2-day workshop that will demystify the process of building a predictable, scalable, and sustainable book of business on Amazon.
Yeah, it starts with a pre-flight inspection of a listing. So you can answer the question, should I go any further with this ASIN or do I need to move on?
If you get past that, we're going to show you how to apply 3 simple yes or no questions that will help you decide whether to pull the trigger or not. Yeah. Like, is this even a good ASIN to test?
Right. And if you do decide to test it, we'll help you implement a framework for a 4-week testing process. And this process is clear and methodical, and it'll tell you whether you should replenish that ASIN or not.
Now, in these 2 days, we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to practice how to apply these critical concepts together. It's intense, it's focused, and it's packed with frameworks, quizzes, and actionable information that really is going to stack the deck in your favor when finding your first 100 replenishable ASINs.
Or your next 100 replenishable ASINs.
Yes, I love it.
Yes. You're going to leave with a roadmap to create your foundational book of business over the next few months.
Our next workshop is May 27th and 28th in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, but seating is limited. It's an intimate setting, but you'll be able to ask all of your questions, plus you'll hear all the questions of the other attendees.
Yeah, this is fun, dynamic, educational. It's a great experience where you will get to meet and work with other people who are doing the same things that you are with similar goals. Imagine how you would feel when you get back home after the workshop and you're feeling transformed from unsure to certain, from cautious to confident, from overwhelmed to empowered.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to stand on one leg anymore and hold your mouth right. Just making sure, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So if you would like to feel that way, go to provenamazoncourse.com/100. That's provenamazoncourse.com/100. And we look forward to seeing you there because we're inspired by the accomplishments of others.
We're passionate about helping others reach their goals.
And we're committed to sharing the keys to success that have been shared with us.